Susanne Herz was 13 years old when Adolf Hitler rode triumphantly into Vienna on March 15, 1938, to celebrate the annexation of Austria into the Third Reich. For 2.5 years, she and her family lived under Nazi rule before escaping to the West on the last passenger ship to leave fascist Europe. This is her story.
I grew up in Vienna and went to school in Vienna. We were one big happy family. I enjoyed some of the culture in Vienna, theater, only children's performances, not grown-ups, and took piano lessons at 6 years old, studied piano 8 years, and ice skating lessons, went wonderful vacations to Italy, because it was cheaper than being in Austria, and the mountains around Vienna. So every year was a nice thing to look forward to. And that was, so I had no complaints on my childhood. A lot of warmth, kept the holidays, kept the religious holidays. It was a wonderful life. I can't complain. My father had a store selling linings to furriers and tailors, specializing in color to match every fabric that you can get. We were known for that, wholesale as well as retail. And in fact, when I was 12, I worked there taking calls, with all the customers being from Czechoslovakia. Try to remember Chavisky or Ruski, or I had to write that all down, you know. That when I was only 12 years old. So anyway, the beginning of my life in Vienna was good. During my school years, we in an apartment that was not too big, was my dad, my mother, my grandmother, who I loved dearly, Judy's named after, and 2 uncles, my mother's 2 brothers, and a cleaning lady who slept there with maid. We had no car, but you could afford a maid because they were cheap. Yeah, so that we were all in one apartment, and the main meal is at 12 o'clock noon. So a lady has to prepare a complete 5-course dinner by 12 o'clock. The men come home for lunch, eat their lunch, sometimes take a nap, and go back to work. So that's what's done. So we went to the market and carried heavy bags. I helped my grandmother sometimes shopping. She loved to play the lottery. I picked the numbers for her, but she never won. I picked numbers for another man. He won. That was funny. Every week I had to go to the lottery with her. She was a fantastic lady, and I loved her dearly. And luckily she passed away in 1937 and did not see all the Hitler problems. We were happy for that. The amenities in the household were strange. We were lucky we had a sink in the kitchen, cold water only, and our own toilet. That's it. But my mother bought a big bathtub, and my sister and I had our own baths, where she had big kettles on the stove, and we had baths. But the other members of the family went to a bath house for bathing or cleanliness, or a sponge bath. And as far as laundry goes, you hire a woman that did all the washing and in the bottom of that apartment house, and then carried those baskets with the laundry up to the top floor, which was called the Boden. It's a storage area for every apartment, and they hung up the clothes. She had to. There was no elevator, up those stairs. And as far as playing for me, I played in the hall, ball with my sister, the long hallway. Oh, the other tenants on that floor all had to use one toilet. We had our own, which felt a little better. Till I moved, the story continues to that other apartment where we had to get out, and I saw a real bathroom, what it looks like. And the same with my piano teacher's apartment. And that's how people really live in Vienna, you know. In the apartment building, there were not too many Jewish people. The landlord was a doctor, a surgeon. He had 2 floors on the bottom, and the other 3 floors were tenants. And there were, I would say, 30% Jews. That's all. I lived in a Catholic neighborhood all my life, here in California as well as in Vienna. Always Catholic, and all my friends were Catholic, most of them. Jewish life for our family was very important. We kept all the holidays. I looked forward to the Seders. We had all the uncles and family there. My father had a pillow and sat and read the Haggadah. And we wore white aprons, my sister and I, and the food was good, we had fun. We loved that holiday, but not Yom Kippur, because I had to fast. They made me fast till noon. After the noon hour, it got better, so I figured it was better already. So up by 13, I had to fast the whole day. But I went to a Jewish children's service, which was on Saturday. I had to go to that. And my father was very active in the temple. He wore a top hat. He was one of the, what you call it, on the sport or something. So the rabbi kissed me, the cantor kissed me, and it was a temple where the women sat separately. It was a conservative, what would you call it? Not Orthodox, but women sat upstairs, went downstairs. And we went to services on the Sabbath, had a Sabbath dinner. My mother liked candles, which is another story of what happened later. I went at that time there was 4 years of elementary school, 4 years of high school. So when Hitler came to Austria, which was March 15, 1938, I was in high school, graduating in June. That was March. I was 3 more months in high school. So when Hitler came, all the Jewish children had to be taken to one particular school. We couldn't go be with the non-Jewish children. So that was the only bad thing that happened so far. And I did not live in a Jewish neighborhood, so I did not see everything that were going on already at the time. People were arrested, walking in the streets, men only, and taken away with unknown places. And so I never saw that much of that. We still continued our store until Kristallnacht. Everything was the same, even for me. I had my piano lessons, and then everything stopped that day. Growing up, I did heard about the Nazis. I didn't pay much attention to it. You know, a kid having fun. I didn't think about it. People talked about it. It was close, you know. It started in 1933. But I didn't pay that much attention till the Anschluss. Then you really know what was happening. There were newspapers sold, the Jews to blame, and funny pictures with noses selling in the street. Papers, you know. And then another thing came up, Jews and dogs are not allowed to come into the park. So I was telling this to my son Alan. My sister and I played at the cemetery. We jumped over graves and had picnics on it to get to a park. So that was my outing, the cemetery, when the Jews were not allowed to go to the big parks in Vienna, which are famous. Kristallnacht started November 15th. At that time, I was going to a trade school to learn sewing. My mother suggested I should learn some kind of a trade. So I came out of the school, but that school was in a Jewish neighborhood. So when that happened, all we heard news that all the temples are burning in the whole city. They threw the books out, burned them and shared them. Even the temple I went to was burned to the ground. The only temple left was the temple in the inner city where my parents got married. It's still there now. That survived. Would you believe it? So when that happened, then we heard people get arrested. People were picked up in the streets. They came into the apartment house. They beat up the one guy. My mother saw it. She told me about it. And then we were worried that they're going to take my father away. So we put him into a bed, put medicine bottles in front of him, and said he had a heart attack in case somebody comes and wants to get him. But nobody came to the door so far. But then in the afternoon, I must have been at a neighbor or something. My mother came running. She was cooking. We have to leave the apartment now. They're going to lock up the apartment to all the Jews in that building. They did it all over. I mean, I'm talking about our own building. And we had to move down to the landlord. Every Jew in this building, he had to give up a room. And we slept in one room, 5 of us. My family of 4 and one uncle, it's 5. And we slept on cots. But one neighbor that I was friendly with let us stay in the apartment where I did my homework and had my meals with my family. So that took a while, probably a month or two. In the interim, one of our employees who came to us at the age of 17, he was an apprentice in my father's store, went to the Gestapo, I don't know how he did it, and said he would like to get the apartment back to these people, to get their furniture out. Because this was amazing, because he worked for the post office then. He could have lost his job. And he went and he got the key back for us to get back into the apartment. So my mother decided this is the time to get the furniture out. We didn't have our visa yet. It's a separate story, how we got that. We didn't register in time at the consulate. The smart people, right after Hitler, went to the consulate and registered. They went by registration. And the worst part was you had to pass a physical when you get a visa. And the doctor was an anti-Semite. And one friend of ours had a heat rash. Nice man, he was frail, like this, you know. He was not taken, they said he has a sickness. And he died because they wouldn't let him pass. He could have been here. That's just a side story. Restrictions were done daily. Something came up. All Jews have to report bring their silver in. Silver dishes, plates have to be brought in. But that's when we started considering shipping our furniture to America. That comes next. Yeah. We shipped everything from a broomstick to a grand piano. Went to that relative's basement. So we were lucky because we had no money when we came here. We had furniture. So we stayed on. We still didn't get our visa. Things got worse and worse. One relative in Cleveland, Ohio, who had a cleaning store, a cousin of my mother, was rejected because it wasn't enough funds they had. So they check your savings account if you can support 3 people. And in the interim, when the war broke out in 1939, in September, all men, Jews, between age of 18 and 50, had to report to the Gestapo, supposedly to rebuild the roads in Poland at the border. So he got his suitcase, we took off, my father left, and reported. We didn't hear from him for weeks. We did hear from him finally. What happened was, when they got to the border, the Gestapo made them get out of the train, pulled guns on them, and he said, if I find anybody in 10 minutes, I'm shooting him dead. So he was very aggressive. He went with my neighbor over the border. It got into Galicia. So then we heard from him. So I don't know the details on that much. We were, in the meantime, getting here through my uncle, the doctor, who approached a man we never met, another doctor, who sent an affidavit to my mother and my sister, me. And he said that my uncle told him, you'll never see these people. I just need an affidavit. And he did. He lived in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And he sent us the affidavit and the ship ticket my uncle bought because every day counted. Hitler got into Norway then, and the borders were closing. It was rough. You didn't know if you're going to live tomorrow, if you know what I mean. So this is leading on to why we got out of Europe. So it was my uncle's right decision because my mother thought we can get the tickets free from the Jewish organizations, but he didn't want to wait that long. That saved my life once. And I had some more things happening to me once I got to the States, of course. That's also interesting. Well, we were in Europe trying to get out. Things were getting closer with Hitler trying to invade Norway at the time. And the backtrack is I had a grandfather and my 2 aunts had no place to go, so they went over the border to Italy. So they were in Milano at the time. We were still in Vienna, okay? So the ship was the only way out of Europe because the war was on already, as you know, in September. This was May. We had to go through Italy. So we went through Genoa to get the ship. But when Hitler invaded Norway, my mother said, we cannot wait. She took wet clothes, threw it in a suitcase, and we tried to get off as fast as we could. Back to Italy and wait there for the boat. The boat didn't sail for a week. It gave us a chance to visit with our family there. And my father's 2 sisters and the grandfather who were in Milano. And from Milano, we took the train to Genoa, where we took the ship. And it was an interesting trip because I was seasick 8 days. When I got off the ship, I was so weak that I collapsed because I eat only apples the whole trip. No stabilizers. Yes, but I met a boy on the ship. I was only 13. He followed me around the ship, and I met him in Brooklyn as well when I saw him here. But the story was with my father was funny. He says, Susie goes, that's Eleanor too. He take us both to the movies. Wouldn't let me out of my sight. We got here, and my father is still in Europe. So we tried to get him here, you know what I mean? The war was on, Europe was closed. So my mother, I only know what I knew. There's maybe more to the story. She wrote a letter to the consulate in Moscow to please release him since the family is all in America. And somehow, Al knows more about that he had to go through Siberia. Europe was closed. Yokohama, wie die later, I forgot to know that town. What is that town in?
Vladivostok.
Yeah, in Yokohama. And then we were in Brooklyn at the time, San Francisco, and take the train all the way to Brooklyn. That's what he did. And he had no clothes, and my cousin brought him clothes, and the people if he found in San Francisco, I don't know how he found them, people he knew from Vienna. They had a leather store, gave him clothes, and we were wonderful to see him. And he was happy to be here. And back to when I got to America, we were picked up by Mom's cousin in a neighborhood called Williamsburg. It's a Jewish Orthodox neighborhood. Have you heard of it? With all brownstone houses. And we stayed there a week with them, and then we rented a furnished room in an attic with a low ceiling. You had to go down like this. The room was full of bed bugs that you had to kill at night with a stick. Don't ask. It was a miracle. We were in that place let's say we moved May, June, July, maybe 2 months, and found an apartment, one of the brownstone in the center apartment. In fact, I was so friendly with her, their daughter, I was friendly with her till she passed away recently. We became good friends. That long, yeah. So we stayed in that apartment, and when father came, we had already the apartment then. So everything was going fine, and he was very unhappy that my mother had to work. My mother was highly educated, spoke 4 languages. She was a foreign correspondent in a tire store in Vienna. That's how I got my piano teacher. He was a brother. That's how the contact was. And she was well educated, and she had to do domestic work. We were school children, and she had to get a job. There were no jobs in the 40s in Brooklyn. So to make a long story short, he was very upset that she worked. And she calmed him down. She said, look, it's only temporary. You just got here. Relax. Eventually it'll be fine. So anyway, somehow they found him a job in some factory. What he did, I don't know. As I said, he was here about 6 weeks after coming from Europe. He was in a trolley car coming home, gets off the trolley car, was hit by a 19-year-old kid without insurance and killed after coming from Europe. And that was a tragic thing for all of us. My mother widowed at 49. I had to quit high school, go to work, get a job, and go to night school. It was rough. And all my friends I met that were from Europe had parents and sweet 16 parties, and I had nothing. Understand? So it was bad. And I didn't tell you about rechecking. The first year I came in 1940, my uncle, who was working for the family that saved our furniture in the basement, was a bartender in their restaurant. They had a restaurant in Staten Island. So he was working there, and then he got a job for 2 ladies in Brooklyn as a butler. So he told my sister and me, we were the kids, you have to replace me for a week. This was 1940. Eleanor was only 12 years old. And the ladies were very nice. While I'm away, you have to clean their place. And I had a maid, I had to clean someone else's place. So anyway, I told my sister, you do the wet cleaning, I do the vacuuming. It was only for a week, and she treated us royally. We ate with her, she treated us like help. Then I got a job for 1 week in a hospital from that Uncle Jonas's girlfriend's mother, who was in charge of the cafeteria. And I dished out food to the doctors. You know what I mean? Didn't speak English. He pointed to the food, and I gave him the food, you know. That was the first summer. But the second summer, my uncle, the doctor, had a patient that had a big, very fine ladies' coat and suit factory. We sold to Lord & Taylor, I. Magna, and Saks Fifth Avenue. And he said, we try to get my mother a job there. She could work there. So I went with my mother and me to his apartment on 72nd Street in Manhattan. And we went, it was very nice. And he said, when he saw me, he said, you should be modeling clothes. Why don't you be a model to me? So I had to get working papers. I wasn't even old enough. So when I went there, And I was shy. I was new. I didn't speak English well. I saw the models running around in slips. I said, what is this? This isn't for me. And then, it's funny, you have to be flat-chested to model coats. And I was too busty for that. I know, and I was happy because I didn't want to do that. I modeled then dresses for temples, as a fun thing, but not professionally. So anyway, I told them I can sew. So they had me sew labels into coats. I had Magnan labels, Lord & Taylor labels, and I got all that fancy clothes wholesale. As my mother used to say, you're the poorest but the best dressed, okay? It was a very fine house. I was there 5 years. While being there, I went to night school, learned accounting and bookkeeping, and gradually worked my into the office work of that place. I did payroll, not the actual cash yet, but the cards, the time cards, totaled the hours, and the head bookkeeper did the payroll. That was much number one. Then after that job, I met my husband. That's a separate story. Go into that later. He put an ad in the paper. He said, why do you work there so cheap? You can be a bookkeeper, get a different job. So I put an ad in the paper, and I got another job, elegant job, on 5th Avenue, on 42nd Street, in a lovely office. And it was a small office. There were only 5 employees. And I was hired as a secretary. I says, look, I want to be a bookkeeper, not a secretary. Don't worry, you'll be fine. He spoke perfect English. And when he dictated a letter to me, I didn't understand what he was saying. So I wrote it down how it sounded verbally, the sound loud, and I wrote it down. Then I called some girlfriends. I can't look it up in the dictionary. I don't know, find it. I couldn't eat my lunch. I had digestion. I know how to write that letter. Brought the letter back, tried what I could, tore up every letter. Don't worry, you'll learn. Then he fired the girl, and I became the bookkeeper. Then everything was fine. I didn't apply for secretary, but he liked me. He liked the way I acted, and no one liked this boss. I got on with him beautifully. I was Miss Golub to him. Perfect English. He had a home in Asbury, New Jersey, and a gentleman. I was there a while, then a year or two. He said, you're young, we have very little work. I think you should advance yourself. So through his accountant, I found this job. I went from the frying pan into the fire. It's a business that sold plastic pocketbooks to the 5 and 10 cent stores. And you know how many stores they have? 2 sets of books, 50 employees. I was the only bookkeeper. I had to do payroll, and years ago, everybody got cash, not a check. You call to the bank, I want 50 20s, too many 10s, how many nickels and dimes? And with the payroll, with cash, I walked in New York, back to the shop and did the payroll. Paid all their bills. And that was work. And I worked there till I expected Judy, then I quit. So I had only 3 jobs in New York. So that was that part of my professional experience in New York, other than having fun. See, I can't remember all the bad things. My mother was almost upset. I wanted to have fun. I came here as a teenager. I went to Times Square to pick up sailors with my friends on Times Square. We had fun. I was working in a very fine ladies' coat and suit manufacturing place called Lito, Cohn and Lobalbo on 512 7th Avenue in the New York Garment Center on 7th Avenue. And while working there about 3-4 years, I must have developed a cold or an eclectic cold, going the subway in and out. It went up into a sore throat and rash and all of a sudden chills and so forth, and they didn't know what it was first, and they thought it was spinal meningitis. So my uncle, the doctor, we had no money, got me into the Long Island College Hospital in a ward. I was there 6 weeks, and they gave me sulfur drugs. And they claimed the sulfur drug came out at the time, and that saved my life. And bedridden for many years, I thought I wouldn't walk again. I was lucky I didn't leave any heart failure or heart murmur and anything like that. So that was very nice. And get back home again after 6 weeks in the hospital. That was an experience. So then the summer came and we wanted to take a vacation. And my mom's cousin's husband knew this farmhouse in the Catskills, not far from one of the big resorts, Grosinger, It was the other Neverly and all these places. So we decided it was $22 a week, all the food and the lodging. So we decided it'd be a nice place to relax after being sick. And I went with my mother and my sister there, and there I met my husband, who was there with his mother, sister, and that's it, I think, before going into service. So I saw this place, I was so disappointed. I said, that is a hotel? For me, the summer before, my aunt took me to this, one of the Jewish bigger hotels. I said, I'm going to be bored here. There was gas rationing. You couldn't even get a car to move you. So my mother said, look, there's a young guy there. Why don't you talk to him? So he was at the river showing off his swimming. He was a good swimmer. He was on the swim team in high school. So then I got talking to him. It was a nice conversation and became friendly. And he was ready to go out to war. And I was there. And two of my girlfriends came up as well. I got pictures. I showed you those, didn't I? In bathing suits? Yeah. Okay, so we had fun. And then we came back home, and I figured it's a summer romance. It'd be over, it'd be done. But then the letters came, letter after letter, okay? I wasn't engaged, he was mad because I didn't say goodbye to him when he was shipped off. Well, I was just a friend. To me, I went with another boy before he went to the Navy. I wasn't engaged. He was just a friend. So the letters came, and then he took me out on furlough when he came in. So it was a summer romance that lasted 51 years. "1943 was a very important year for me. It was a good year because I survived spinal meningitis, 6 weeks in the hospital, and then went to the country and met my future husband. This is another funny story. When I went to night school, and the French teacher was chasing after me too. He said, I'd take you right home. I'd be happy to take you home. So I came home, and the brownstone house is an outdoor door and an indoor. There's a between door. So he comes home, wants to come into the house. I says, no, I gotta go upstairs. Forget it. Luckily, my mother came with groceries. She said to me, what were you doing here? He says, well, he took me home. He was very friendly. So one day in the subway going to work, who's pushing through the crowd? That teacher, saying hello. Are you a model yet? Are you modeling? I don't know why he asked that. Friendly talk, he was a good teacher, but the teacher number one. The bookkeeping teacher in the night school is my dancing partner at a party. I can go on and on with that. Plus the Shriners, so that we don't go to that now. This is all fun. So it was a fun life. Let's see now. When 43, I worked and I went out with girlfriends and dates. Went to Coney Island swimming, and the in-laws that I met later lived in Brighton Beach, where I wound up later living with them. Oh boy. And it was an easy life. I mean, we didn't have any money. The rent was $35 a month. I didn't mention that thing earlier. And when my dad passed away after the accident, my mother said to the landlady, we can't afford the rent, we'll have to move. I don't want you to move. She liked us. We all went to work. We weren't home. I'm reducing it to $32 a month. So I gave my mother from the $16 I made, $8. That paid the rent. Let's see, I paid $8 in. I forgot it all. I paid almost the rent. And Eleanor worked that time in the Broadway store while she was going to college. And my mother worked. She got a job then in a dress factory where she was called an examiner. When the dress came through the assembly line, she made sure the buttons were on, the belts were on, and she was standing on her feet all day. Then coming home and cooking meals. If that continued, she wouldn't have made it to 103 if we didn't get out of there. It was unbelievable. So it was rough for us financially, you know what I mean? But we were happy to be alive. I said, if I'd rather eat dry bread here than be poor than be in Europe, right? So it was bad, you know what I mean, till things got better. When I got that bookkeeping job, I made a little more money. But that was after I got married. I moved to Brighton Beach. During the war, Syed, I communicated by letter, and that's the way I got to know him better. And of course, all the furloughs made it personal, when he came in. And that was the season everybody got married. All of us in style to get married, the soldier coming home, it was. So, of course, we didn't have money for a wedding. My cousin, in fact, had his sister, girlfriend, who I never met, lent me a wedding white dress because I couldn't buy a white dress. And I had to sew it in, it was too big. And I remember in my Say's uncle had a cleaning store. We had the dress cleaned, it looked nice. The wedding was in a rabbi study. We had, I think, 90 people. And the men wore top hats, wasn't fancy. Music built in, what do you call that? Music that's not a band, but it's tape music, for dancing. So it was, and the landlord, who was a lawyer, where we lived in Brownstone, made a negotiation for my mother to have the wedding with this rabbi. So that time, his father was alive too, and he was very nice. I liked the father best, but he died shortly afterwards, after I got married. So after that, we moved into a furnished room in Brighton Beach over a candy store. And what happened there was they had rats in the animals, or rats or mice. They came up and came into my room. I come home one night and everybody's in the room trying to kill rats. So that had to end. And when the father died, the mother was alone and she asked us, why don't you move in with us? So I moved in with my mother-in-law. She had a whole floor apartment. And then we got the tenants out above, eventually, and we got our own apartment above them. I was still with them, She was okay. She was a cold fish, but I got along with her. But the sister was miserable, the older sister. Every weekend she came with a son and a husband. A butt-in, miserable yente. Okay? I can't stand her, I couldn't stand her. If I ever talked against his family to him, he nailed them, you could hear him 10 blocks away. Don't you dare yell at Susie. Don't you dare do. He gave it to me, he didn't stick up for them. He stuck up for me. He always did. He were awful. I came to life when I moved to California and got rid of them. That was a relief for me, I tell you. They came out to visit, not the mother. The mother died after that. She was okay, she was harmless. Not much personality, not much that, but the sister was miserable. She has a son we're still friendly with. He lives in Atlanta, he's a psychiatrist, Marty. And he came to all family functions out here, and sometimes Judy's in touch with him. But it was bad news being around that family. After I came to life here, I almost had a nervous breakdown from them. They were so bad. The reason we moved to California, my sister moved to California, and her husband said it's better living, New York is congested, and I sure wanted to get away from the in-laws. So that was good. So we all moved to California except my mother. She didn't want to give up Brooklyn till she knew we liked it here, in case we come back. But when she saw we settled, we got her out here. And she lived till her death with my sister in Newbury Park. Things were not easy. And then job-wise, continuing on after that, with you get different bosses coming in, in a big company, corporations. The guy became vice president, so I had a fight with him, and he's out, so he decided he's going to go into business for himself. No more this. So he started consulting. And the consulting was nice, it was good pay, but you always worry if the contract is renewed. Every year, good pay, he worked 2 days a week here, 1 day there, and most of the jobs were in the Bay Area. So he left Tuesday, came back Thursday. We did that for 2 years. So that lasted a while, and then that's too much to explain. We went to the different products that we went into. And my background in accounting helped, because before that, I taught piano for a while as well, I guess you know, when the kids were little. And then I got tired of that after a while, and I like clothing. So when the Robinson store opened in Woodland Hills, I decided to apply for a job there. So I was hired as almost like a personal shopper. I worked in the boutique before they changed the store. A lady came in, I put her on a chair, I brought the clothes to her. what to wear, you know what I mean? And I never had my hours cut. One lady came in, he says, my mother's in a wheelchair. I need a couple of gowns for her. She can't come in. All 4 gowns she bought that I showed her. She would only come to me. Another lady wanted a bar mitzvah dress. $200, $3.5. Sold the one for $45. Thrilled. Because I couldn't tell a woman how gorgeous she is when it doesn't fit, like some of them. This was not commission, just helping. So that was a fun job for me. And then, after things got better with Say starting his business, I left Robinson and worked for our business. That's when I did all the accounting, taxes, everything up to corporate tax forms. Payroll tax, sales tax, employee, we were 5 of us, with everyone, payroll, I did all that. So that helped him not having to hire a bookkeeper. I says, nobody's embezzling me. I had a joke about that. So I did that until we closed up business, up to the very end, you know, just when we ended it, you know, when he died. I was stay-at-home mom when the children grew up, and I taught piano in the house. Children came to me, I had recitals for them, and I gave them little trophies with the composer's head on it. You ever see those? Head and this big. I got little gifts, yeah. And well, actually, when I came here, I did not know the English terminologies for the musical terms, like crescendo, piano, and diminuendo, and the terms of sharp and flat. I only know it in German. So I went to Pierce College, took music courses. So after a while, the teacher said, why don't you teach piano? I said, that's a thought. So I took lessons from her. She came to my house, and I taught piano too. And taught those little kids to play. Some of them were 6, 7 years old. I made sure they had fun, so not just theory. They had to have a notebook with the notes, and they had to write the notes out. And then I had them get little songs to play. The kids get tired just to practice. But with the training I had to do with this teacher, strictly exercise, and I hated Bach. I couldn't stand it. They say, if you play Bach, you can do anything. But my father, liking operettas, for every birthday, I've surprised him with a song by Johann Strauss. It was Roses from the South or from an operetta song. That was my taste. So after I quit the lessons, which I had to, I stopped doing a lot of classical stuff. It's show tunes, international music, Italian music. That's what I like. What decided to make us move to Idaho was the early 90s, the aerospace business took a dive. Things were not going well. And Alan always enjoyed, my son Alan Lloyd, the Northwest. He always went on vacation up here and liked it. And we liked traveling. And we did some work for Boeing in Seattle. So we had to deliver one of the tools we made. So my husband said, why don't we take a look? Alan always talks about, and Marilyn as well, who was living in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, as a child. So he was so impressed with the area. He liked boating, fishing. He wanted a boat. And we stayed in the resort, which is beautiful. It has tower rooms, and we stayed in the tower room. He got wild there. He said, that's the place to invest money and buy land. That started it, understand? He says, it looks like the San Fernando Valley in the early 50s. So that started the Idaho thing. So I said, one rule, I will not spend the winters there. No winters will I stay in Idaho. I don't know how to drive in snow. I learned to drive in California. I be stuck. I like the outdoors. I don't like that. I said, no way. And he said, okay. And he realized himself that he didn't like the cold weather himself. So that's why the 2 locations. So in California, I stay in the winter and up there in the summer. So I said earlier to someone that not selling the house when he died, I didn't do because prices were down, and I still go up there, and Alan watches the house for me. He doesn't like it's neglected, and then my daughter likes it there. She's up there now too, so both kids are there, and the grandchildren come. During the Hitler regime, I personally lost actually 10 members of my family. My father lost 2 brothers, their wives, and total 3 children. And my cousin who's still living, she's 96 in New York, her mother. That was the immediate family, okay? And then 2 cousins, my mother's side. It was total 10. The one family was in Antwerp, Belgium. They were taken there, and the husband was in France. The others were in Vienna. Oh, the other brother lived in Czechoslovakia. They were picked up there. The people that should not forget what happened. It shouldn't be forgotten. That's why there are so many programs now in temples, people speak about it. And it's shown what really happened. Because you have people say they can't believe it. Then in the 21st century, people are killed just for their religion. You know, innocent people. And tortured too. And children and women. I mean, it's unheard of. I mean, it's just like, that's what I could never catch on, that can happen. At that time, you know, it isn't the 16th century what it kind of hats, but it happened so actually not that long ago, you could say. I couldn't comprehend how they got away with it. But I had a nice religion, and now I like the religion that Alan got involved in. I told you, I found that very nice in Idaho. I go to Bible studies, I go to church on Sunday, listen to nice music he plays, and I like the people, and I found it interesting. I never saw that before. So I became more involved with that now. So I told my friends here, most of them are Catholics that I'm friendly with here. I go to church every Sunday in Idaho. I mentioned that. They say, really? Do you do? I said, yes, I like it. It's been very nice. Made some friends there. They all like me there, so.